In this presentation, Mariano will look at the growing challenges in today's digital business environment. So please give a big warm welcome to Mariano Arrnaiz.
That's a long way up. Thank you. Hello. Good morning. Thanks a lot, Alan, for the presentation, and I'd like to thank the Open Group for inviting us along today. Hopefully my allergy won't work on my throat. So anyway, as Alan mentioned, the objective of my presentation today is to run through very briefly what the context in the business that we're running, what we're living, and what was Thesthe's experience in how did we manage to not only struggle through the crisis, but I'd say thrive in the midst of the crisis. That's an important aspect. And I'll zoom into the role of the CIO and very briefly, because I'm not an expert, into the EA role within this whole change and model that we've gone through, okay? So very briefly, who is Thesthe? Well, first of all, Thesthe is a very complex thing to pronounce, and so you did a great job. This goes this way. Yep. Yeah. Thesthe is, we're basically dedicated to covering credit risk. What's credit risk? Well, when a company sells to another company, usually you sell on a credit basis. That means you get paid 30, 60, 90 days, whatever. And there's a risk that there may be a non-payment. So we cover the full cycle of credit risk. We're a B2B company. We're present in around 10 or 11 countries, Latin America, Europe, and looking at other places. And we cover a lot of risk. We're also the Spanish export credit agency, and basically an ECA, what they do, every country has one, by the way. When there's a big operation, when a company is carrying out a huge project, be it the Panama Canal, or be it a 3 or 4 or 5 year contract, well, there's other risks entailed in being non-paid, which is acts of God, as they call them, and what we call oh my God, which is maybe there's a government change and other types of changes. So those types of catastrophic risks are usually covered by ECAs, and we represent the Spanish ECA, okay? So what sort of context are we living in, and what are some of the challenges and forces, and what's happening in the world? Well, I think these types of challenges are common for all of us and everywhere. By the way, this is a global thing. We're all facing these types of challenges, and the underpinning forces which we think are driving that. There's 4 major forces which we think are pushing on this. One is the regulation. The post-Enron regulation is just increasing, and that's definitely a big challenge for any company. Also the consumer. The consumer is becoming better informed, more demanding. They're getting used to online digital responses, and they're demanding that from everyone. And also the competition. Now the competitive landscape has changed, dramatically. Geographically, globally, plus new players are coming in. Google's a bank now, and or thinking of doing some banking, and so all the barriers have just seemed to have completely fallen down, and this has opened up a very dramatic change. And I think one of the major forces, though, which also we can see here, is what we call the digital revolution. I think we're in the midst of what we could call the most important digital revolution in history. It's changing every aspect of our lives. How we entertain ourselves, how we teach, how we learn, how we date, just about everything we do, how we buy, is being influenced by this digital change. And obviously, companies cannot be indifferent towards that, because if they want to go where their clients are, well, they need to go where they are, and they're in the digital realm. And we see these different forces, Internet of Things. That I know that some of these topics are going to be treated later on. So this is a huge and a dramatic change in the landscape of business. We're going from, as Negroponte put it, from atoms to bytes, and from offline to online. So we need to understand the forces of this change, and it's the rate of change also because of this digital revolution has increased tremendously. And so this is the environment, this is the context. But is there a light at the end of this tunnel? Is there some sort of a way out of this? Or is it that in a very short amount of time we're running into an avalanche or a tsunami of data that's hitting us? And the previous talk spoke about how to tame this avalanche of data, but all businesses are facing this, and we need to see how we're going to cope with that, how we're going to tackle that avalanche of data. So as you can see, the whole scenario is very complicated, and there's actually an acronym which I think epitomizes and emphasizes what's happening, which we're all familiar with, which is the VUCA, which is a military term, as you know, is developed in the military, the US Army in the 90s. And basically they used to use VUCA, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, to describe the types of scenarios the soldiers will run into in the battlefield, okay? And prepare them for that. So as now this has worked its way into the managerial schools, and that went pretty much because it's a crazy world, as someone put it out there. And we need to see how I'm going to manage, how we're going to lead in those types of, in a volatile environment, in an uncertain environment, and a complex and ambiguous environment. Someone put it in a matrix. It's got to do with how much we know and the probability. So there's some, depending on what quadrant you're on, well, you're in a complicated scenario or a complex scenario, ambiguous scenario, and each one of these is related to business. When you open up a new market, when you want to, prices are very volatile. New competitors are coming in. All these create uncertain, volatile, and again, ambiguous and complex situations. So we need to interpret, this is one of the things that we thought anyway in Thested, that, hey, we need to stop a minute and try to interpret what's going on here. In the midst of the financial crisis in 2008, that hit our industry tremendously, as you can imagine. Our industry is basically in charge of covering non-payments. So you can imagine in 2008, with what was going down, there was a lot of non-payments, and the whole industry basically collapsed. There was huge losses. And for our company in 2008, there was a particular moment in time that for every 100 euros we were selling, we were losing 180 euros, okay? So, it's a crazy time. We're actually going to the salespeople and say, don't sell anymore. This is really crazy. So we had to stop and say, if we keep on going this way, we might have to close the shop, okay? There's huge losses, as I said. Actually, in most countries, the government had to step in to help the industry, okay? Very similar to the banking industry. So, because again, having like credit insurance is very important for business because that gives them security and guarantee. And because credit insurers were unable to cover those risks, the government had to step in. And that was our scenario in 2008, okay? In the midst of the crisis, losing money and questioning what we were going to do, okay? So what we're saying is that you need to interpret correctly what's going down. Otherwise, the consequences can be tremendous.
Das hier ist mein Sektor. Das hier ist das wichtigste Gerät des Küstenwächters. Das Gerät und das Gerät. Überlebensradar.
Mayday, mayday. Hello, can you hear us? Can you hear us? Can you... Over. We are sinking. We are sinking.
Hello? This is the German Coast Guard.
We are sinking. We're sinking.
What are you thinking about?
So, like being able to interpret, no pun meant for the Germans, by the way. The Spanish, we all speak pretty bad, so no problem. Being able to interpret correctly this new digital reality constitutes, without a doubt, a strategic and competitive weapon. I mean, how can you convert all this, what we just saw, this turmoil, or all this complexity, into, as I said, something which you can thrive on? Well, again, we're talking about complexity, as we've seen, And we're talking bad things, that with the digital era, this complexity is going, and more rapidly, it's going worse. And the speed of change is tremendous. And, you know, again, I mean, I know it sounds very dramatic, but this is where we're at. And this is where most businesses are at, saying, how do I confront the future? And how am I supposed to confront this future of complexity and not be dragged by what's happening and just be reactive to all that? That's what business leaders are looking at, okay, in general. So again, we thought, hey, the only way we can go about confronting this type of future is let's try to reduce complexity. That sounds good. We'll see how we went about that later. And instead of being dragged by what's going on, why don't we try to predict what's happening, what's going to happen, okay? Bit of foresight, you know, looking forward. And in the midst, as I said, of the 2008 crisis, this was our reality, okay? As I said, losing a lot of money. Well, as you know, Robert Frost put it, we had two roads that diverged before us, okay? And we thought, where are we going to go? Are we going to do continual improvement, set up some sort of a framework of improvement, you know, bring in some consultants? Or is that sufficient for what's going down? Well, you know, we decided that maybe that wasn't the right path, and we decided to take the road less travelled by, okay, which is the innovation road, okay, and up until now, this is the Thestes story, okay. I think without being falsely humble, it's a success story, as you'll see later, hopefully, with the numbers, because the numbers don't lie, and as I said, what do we mean by innovation? Because innovation's become a bit of a buzzword. Everyone talks about innovation. My kids talk about innovation. We're going to innovate and create a WhatsApp group, and for us, innovation means something that creates tangible business value. Okay, if it doesn't create tangible business value, it's not innovation. It's not about having good ideas. It's about something which produces some sort of value for the company. And in Theste, we decided that the backbone of innovation was going to be analytics, insight, data. Okay. So you go, okay, that sounds great up to then. We said, that sounds very interesting, but what does that mean? And we go, okay, we're talking about business intelligence. We're talking about data mining. You know, we'd been doing that for the last, I don't know, more than a decade. And our experience had been pretty, well, not that hot as for many other companies. Why? Because most of the analytics was just staying in someone's desk, ending up on someone's desk, okay, or in the back office. So as a lot of experiences in our lives, well, sometimes they don't really meet, you know, the expectations one would like, okay. So we said, hey, okay, well, this type of analytics is not the type of analytics we require. I mean, we're living in a society which, you know, with the era of information, and the types of results, the analytics we were using, were producing, were definitely not what we required to confront the challenges which we just all seen before. So we decided to, you know, rediscover data, okay? We had to say we've got to transform this insight in such a manner that it not only tells us what has occurred, okay, you know, which is, okay, well, you know, who sold what, where, and how much, which is, you know, very basic information, or, you know, get some information of what your name, your age, and, you know, typical information people handle about you know, someone's client. But we need to go beyond what has happened to predict what's going to happen, okay, which is actionable, what we call actionable insight, okay. We're talking about predictive insight, okay. And this is basically what we did. I mean, we're a data-driven company. We actually buy companies which are data-driven. We've got the biggest D&B equivalent company in Europe, well, in Spain, Portugal, Colombia, and several countries. We align with Dun & Bradstreet as a world partner, with Experian also. And we said, okay, if we want to, we need to grab that actionable insight and apply it to our business. If we did that, then maybe we could reduce complexity, and maybe it will help us to predict the future and not be dragged by it. And this is what our innovation is about. Very simple, It's no big deal. But this is what we've been doing since 2008, and we put basically our hands to work. We put we put some hard work onto this, and we said, what could happen if we apply analytics in the business? Now, you've most probably seen this quadrant before. Well, you get different results depending on where you apply it, okay? If you apply analytics to the existing business and to the existing questions, okay, well, you can have, some efficiency, optimization, etc. If you apply it to the same business, you might open up maybe, some new lines of growth, okay? And if you apply it to the unknown business and unknown questions, well, you might open up and redesign the whole, competitive landscape you're on, okay? So we decided, okay, well, let's start off by doing this. Let's apply some of this business, some of this analytics to our business, and we started off with the first quadrant, okay, which we can call that the small data quadrant, okay, the existing business and what we were doing, okay. So how did we do that? We decided to do something which is really radical, okay, because a lot of people talk about analytics and that, but again, it's usually in someone's laboratory, someone's desk. I was going to say freaky, but they're not. I mean, someone's out there, they're looking at data, putting on a manager's desk maybe. We decided to put analytics in the business. We decided to redesign our applications so as to incorporate analytics in our value chain, okay? And that made a huge difference, okay? We're talking about up until we did this, well, we had expert systems. We had a lot of people that had their own little expert system to carry out analysis, risk analysis, or non-payment analysis, country analysis. We decided to get all that knowledge and place it in the heart of the business. We process millions of pieces of data online, real time, and we make decisions on that. We act upon that, okay? Just to give you some figures, okay? We receive around 8,000, 9,000 risk applications daily, okay, from companies from different places on the planet. And more than 95% of those are answered real time, okay, online. We connect to all these different sources of information. We've got statistical models. We've brought in a lot of mathematicians, by the way, and invested a lot on tools, redesigned, as I said, the applications, and that's online. Before, we had processes that were taking 25 days for us to decide whether or not someone was legitimate or not to get paid some sort of a claim, okay? We had a heck of a lot of people behind that, okay? We decided to redesign that process from scratch with a white paper. And right now, again, 85% of those claims are being treated online, real time. The impact on customer service was tremendous, and the impact on productivity, as you can imagine, was tremendous. Okay, so what we did when we applied analytics to the business, to that first quadrant of what we were actually doing, we saw the efficiency. And as you can see, there's only a couple of ways one can really grow. Okay, how can you increase your demand? One is to lower your price. And if you can, through efficiency, you can maybe become more competitive in your price. And this is what we did. Okay, this is our first action. And in the first year, what sort of results? Because usually you say these things in a board meeting, etc. There goes the IT guy, taking back to this sounds like crazy stuff. My boss is the president. Okay, is a great hunter. Here I'm talking about data and analytics and mining, and let's bring in some new people, etc. And in the first year, though, what were the results of this? We'll see some results later. But let me just start by saying that we had a 70% increase in productivity in 1 year. That was huge. I mean, people going, that was the wow effect. People going, wow, that was tremendous. I mean, this really works. And that helps a lot, to be honest with you, when you're riding down these paths of innovation. So we said, hey, why don't we try to explore and put some of that insight into our value proposition? See if we can bring in some different types of customers, and how does one go about doing that? Okay, we'll start thinking about one's product and that, but we decided, no, let's listen to what the client has to say. Now, listening is a huge act. It might sound simple, but in today's digital environment, you've got a lot of digital transactions. There's a lot of information out there. There's buckets of information. There's a lake of information, someone said before, okay? Well, then we said, hey, let's look at his digital footprint. Let's grab all the information we can about the client and see what he actually likes, okay? But let's not look at it from our insurance perspective. Let's not look at the client as a policy, okay? Or as a contract, or as whatever he may be. Let's take on the user perspective. Now, I'm not very sure about this slide. I mean, the kid's in a great car, but it's a very strategic area of the shopping centre. But anyway, it's supposed to be client-centred, by the way. So anyway, we said, let's see what he wants. Let's take away the product perspective. Let's look at the client perspective, understand their needs, and this opened up for us a huge change again, okay? We turn our value proposition upside down. This is actually one of the ads that we were throwing on at that time. We broke away from what the dogmas were. We decided, I'm talking about a world unique solution, okay? Because we have world competitors. We don't just battle in Spain, okay? The competitors here are the French companies, the German companies, you know, all the rest of the companies here. So we just said, let's produce something completely different. Let's throw away this insurance product, and let's put a full range of solutions for the company, because the company requires information, requires people just to help him along. I'm not going to go through the whole product. So we changed and we cover the full cycle of credit management. So what we did really is get all of our assets and opened them up and said, let's offer him little pieces of each one of these assets singularly. So he can basically come along and build his own solution, okay? And be a co-creator with us, because every company is different. Some people don't know where to maybe sell. They need to find new prospects, need to find new countries so they can export. Well, they need information for that. We have great information about where to export, what good clients are. We can clone good clients. We can tell you which are the good companies to sell to, who are you most likely to get paid by. So this type of solution, and I'm talking about information from prospecting to financing. Okay, once you sell on a credit basis, you need to cover your own costs. So we can help you. We've actually built a fund, a non-banking fund, with some crowdfunding, and our clients can feed off that. It's a big change in the market. Okay, this is the value proposition, and when you apply analytics to your value proposition, okay, with a more advanced predictive model, etc. Insurance usually is an industry where we work on large numbers. Okay, you've got 1 million drivers, and the probability of 1 million drivers, with an orange car or whatever it is. We decided to throw away some of those big numbers and become a bit of a sniper. Okay, with a variable pricing system, unique in the world. No other credit insurer has a variable pricing system. You can look into that. And we don't need to cover all your risk. We only cover the ones you want. That's pretty much in fashion now. No one likes, I enjoy very much just paying for what I want, pay per use, as we call it, okay? Anyway, this is some of the changes we put into Theste in the midst of the crisis, okay? This is our context. And again, so as my boss said, but do you earn money with all this? Well, as I anticipated before, there were results, and very interesting results. I've just, there was a huge paradigm shift to what was happening before we started bringing in these changes, and just see some of the figures, okay? And, I don't know if you can see it correctly. This is really exciting stuff out here. This is real stuff. This is like, the company numbers. Well, you see there's a big throb. This is the loss ratio. 138 was the average. I said we reached 180 at the peak of the 2008 crisis. But you can see that how it started just flying down, the loss ratio. That's how much we lose for what we sell, okay? So there was a dramatic change in putting this analytics in our risk model and redesigning all of our risk model. But okay, so you stopped losing money, but was that basically because you threw out all the clients? All the bad clients, you just kept the good clients? Did you grow in income? Did you grow in profit? Well, yeah, we did. I mean, here you got, some, pretty much the orange one is the income, and the other one's the profit. The funny thing is that in 2009, we broke the historical best result of the company. We were the only insurance company in Spain that didn't require government help. Talking about 2008, the crisis, 2009, the best year in history, as far as profit's concerned, okay? Now, again, that's as Tom Peters puts it, a wow change, okay? Someone said, hey, this really does work, okay? And how about the competitors? Was everyone doing the same? I mean, well, no. We increased our market share by 58%. Let me just say that 2014 was the second biggest profit year in the history of Theste, okay? So, I mean, things are still rolling in the same way because this is a continuous innovation experience, okay? We've actually put innovation as part of our culture, part of our DNA, as they call it. And that forms a very important part of our business. The good thing is that when I speak to my boss now, he's a data-driven boss. Actually, it's interesting when you hear him speak because he's not a very IT-sensitive person. As I say, usually with IT, you're either someone that the company knows they need, but you're sitting in the corner, they don't really want to speak to you because you speak funny. But he loves speaking about data, he likes speaking about technology, and he actually thinks that we're not an insurance company anymore. These types of phrases, well, if they come from me, well, not a big deal maybe, but when they come from someone who, again, is maybe a bit of technological phobia, well, it's a big deal. And what were the competitors doing? And what were a lot of the rest doing? Well, what they only know how to do. Because if you don't take the innovation path, which is, as I said before, the path less travelled, well, usually you find yourself, again, this is the productivity sign, where you find yourself battling in the other field where all the rest are.
20 pounds! 20 pounds on my left! 30 pounds! 30 on my right! 50 pounds! 50! 60! 70! 90! 90! 200 pounds! 200 pounds up there! Anyone else? Going, gone! 210!
Okay, so I'm not running very well on time, so I'm going to go a bit faster. So what was the vision driving this change? As I said before, we talked about innovation. We talked about the backbone of innovation was data. Okay, we're a data-driven company. For us, that's the main asset we have at the moment. We require more information than anyone else does, by the way, from our clients. So what's the vision and what type of challenges does the CIO have and the enterprise architect have, at least in our company, okay? So how can we travel along with what all these changes that we've just gone through and et cetera? I mean, obviously we need to reinvent ourselves and we need to question ourselves, okay? And as the Danish philosopher, Kierkegaard, my favorite there, well, you need to, change where you're at, okay? Get out of your comfort zone, okay? And that's not an easy task. I mean, it sounds very easy if someone's speaking up here, but I'm the CIO of the company. I'm in charge of business processes, innovation, and again, this is real stuff. So if you fail, you're out, okay? So you've got to dare, to lose yourself a little bit, and hence, try to avoid, for the CIO to try to avoid ending up like this. I mean, that was, again, that helps, helps a little bit to be brave, because you say, okay, I mean, I either do something here or we're gone. So obviously we need to adapt, to survive. And I know this is a very well-used thing, but we really need to have a close look at that, okay? We need to adapt dramatically. Change is huge, as we saw before in the digital era. The speed of change is tremendous, and we're living in a VUCA, crazy world, okay? So we need to evolve and we need to adapt. Let's take a look at the CIO first of all, okay? The evolving role of the CIO, okay? I want to draw later on a parallel between the CIO and the enterprise architect, okay? If you don't mind, at least in our company. So we basically travelled from our first role. By the way, there's still plenty of CIOs who do this. They usually depend on the CFO if they do this role only, which is the CIO Hublis, which is basically a service-oriented IT guy. He wants to, what does he want to gain? He's looking for trust, service-oriented. His language is about service, and his skills are usually very IT and service provider-oriented, okay? But so if you're doing this is great, okay? Is everything running? Yep. Well, that was the basic role that we all had, okay? You're supporting the business. That's not enough, as you all know. That hasn't been enough for a long time. So we need to understand and go a step further, and we need to be a real transformational partner. Now have a close look at this picture. There's no smile, so you're not picking it up. I don't know if you saw this guy. He's an interesting guy. Well, anyway, yeah, this is just to make sure everyone's alert. Well, this guy had no idea about sign language, apparently, but he moved around really cool. It looks a bit like Michael Jackson. And anyway, they discovered he wasn't really saying anything. So they said, wow, well then, we need to do something different to that. We need to interpret business. We need to become a business partner. If we want to transform business, you've got to understand business. You can't be speaking about IT all the time. You've got to really understand what the business wants. And then they want to talk to you. And from that perspective, you can help the company transform. That's why I left the IT. I didn't leave it. I kept the IT role, but I took on business processes, BPM, all that type of world, okay? And we're helping the company transform. That's where you can look for efficiency, you can redesign processes, you can align processes more, and your skills there are change management and very much business process oriented, okay? And this is where people are always talking about this role here. I have a new role, by the way. This is what I call the CIO 2.0. But I think today's dramatic digital revolution takes us to something more than just seeing how we can align IT to business. Hey, that was the big task of enterprise architecture. How can I align IT to business? Well, that's not enough anymore, okay? Because we have to go a step further. And we have to be able to align business to technology. Because technology is that disruptive. It really is that disruptive. And unless we help, sometimes, not always, not only, but sometimes we need to help the business to align to what's happening out there. There are huge changes. And if we don't bring those changes to the business, well, they'll be left out, okay? So we can't just be a reactive type of partner. We need to be an influencer, okay, in the company. Here's when you're sitting on the board. Here's when you're sitting in the management committee, because you're partnering, you're influencing. Otherwise, you're just somewhere else. You're not in the right place. You're just supporting the business, and that's not enough anymore. Because to interpret correctly this digital revolution, I think is key for transformation, is key for survival, okay? So we've got to go beyond being just a partner, okay? And we've got to go to the next role. But one thing's funny though, okay? This happens a lot, by the way. It happens to us, we've got our neocortex, which helps us a lot to, think. But we've also kept the amygdala, okay? That little part of our stem there, that limbotic part that helps us react and survive, by the way. And this happens to the CIO, by the way, okay? The CIO is a bit of a juggler because how does technology influence business? That sounds really cool, but make sure the email doesn't fail. You still have to be service-oriented. You don't leave these roles behind, okay? The CIO has to keep on servicing, has to keep on partnering, and because that builds up your credibility. This is a pyramid, like the Maslow pyramid, okay? Unless you cover the bottom line, you can't be on the top line. You can't be an influencer who goes, hey, why don't you just make sure the machine works? Be quiet and go to the machine. Well, you've got to make sure these things work, okay? And thank goodness there's a digital revolution. We've got plenty of tools to do this now. The elasticity of technology, talking about outsourcing, cloud, etc. The running the business, the amount of tools we have to be able to put some of that aside, save some money on that, save some time on that. Technology is commoditizing, as we all know, and we need to take advantage of all these things, because I spoke to the CIO meeting once, and they were going, no, but I can't take my server outside of my company because, okay, I mean, that's great. Maybe for him it's okay, but at least for me, if we're looking at the server all day, then we won't be able to transform. It's very difficult. So, again, I think that to survive in the VUCA world, we need to do something. And meanwhile, back at the ranch, as in Bonanza, that was an old series for the old people here, like myself, what's the enterprise architect doing? Is he reinventing himself? Or is he still, basically doing the same as before? Let's hope not, because otherwise he's got a bit of a problem, most probably. His survival is at stake, okay? Now, let me start by saying very quickly in these last 10 minutes, and thanks for hanging on there, which is I'm not an enterprise architect expert, okay? And I know I'm surrounded by that, so I'm going to speak very humbly about this. I'm going to speak about our experience, where we were and what we thought and what we decided to do, and with all humility, and again, willing to learn from everyone here, so great. So what are the challenges? So I want to draw like a parallel using the painting scenario, okay? And I'll put this painting, okay? Looks like a picture, but it's a painting. Jason DeGraff. It's an incredible painting. It's called hyper-realism. Imagine the amount of time he spent doing that, the complexity, the detail. It's a very lengthy process, right? Very slow process, okay? Hopefully none of the balls will move. Otherwise, if we go there, we won't be able to know what's happened, okay? So are these the characteristics, lengthy, big, complex, glitzy, shiny, detailed, slow? Are these the types of characteristics which define the VUCA crazy world and the digital world? Let me just draw another painting, which is Impressionism, the Van Gogh. Okay, so this is different, hey? I mean, it's painting as well. Both of them are very nice, by the way. But this gives a lot of freedom for the mind to think, to fill in the gaps. It's not that detailed. It actually captures maybe a changing environment. Because, if you change the shoelaces, it doesn't really change the essence of what this is transmitting. Because it's trying to provoke a more human aspect, which is the emotions, okay? So, Anne? Well, this is my inspiration for the types of changes I think the EA has to have, okay? The business is a living organism, as everyone says and everyone writes about. It's definitely a living organism. It's really a living organism now with the digital revolution and changing very rapidly. We need something which can evolve at that speed, okay? We cannot become a bottleneck to, this changing environment, okay? The times are changing, and we're no longer architecting a building. We're architecting a living organism in a rapidly changing digital environment. And even the buildings are changing. I had a hard time believing this one, but that's a building. It actually changes. It's dynamic architecture. Very interesting. If we want to drive part of that growth and the change and all that we saw before, if we want to be a real ally to the CIO and to the company, to the transformational team, we need to, obviously adapt and change. We've got to leave behind dogmatism. We've got to be willing to, be agile, really agile with this. And we needed at least to rethink our role in EA. Because, And so I'd like to just run through that in 5 minutes very quickly, okay? I don't think there are, any magic formulas, but, the company, how can Enterprise Architect help the CIO, help the company from becoming a one-man band? When you respond to this VUCA world, there's that many changes going on. The company's taking on that many challenges that is becoming a bit of a one-man band, okay? As you know, a one-man band plays a lot of instruments, but they're not always in tune, okay? The overall effect is okay, but how can we help the company to simplify, okay? So I don't think there's any single solution, as I said before. There's no magic recipe, no unique path. So I would like to just run through our experience and some of the considerations that we had, okay? And there's 6 little considerations which I'd like to run through. Very quickly though, this is just slam. This, our perspective, what we thought. Must probably use it beyond this now, I'm sure. From what I've been reading and that, I know some of you already, some big changes have occurred. So first of all, I'd like to speak about being proactive, cooperative, going beyond frameworks, agility, sell and audacity, okay? Being proactive. Well, you can't really be on the forefront of change and transformation if, you're looking through the rear vision mirror. Hey, if you want to drive change, you've got to look forward. You've got to be on the foreline. You can't just be producing papers that nobody reads, as someone put it, okay? It's not enough just to respond to what the business wants. If we want to be influencers and leaders, we need to provoke the business. We need to provoke the business. We're not here just to write down in a very diagrammatic and modelling way what's happening. That's great, but it's not enough if you want to be a real ally of the CIO or the transformation team, okay? In our case, it was on our side more. We've got to help the enterprise to understand the value and the impact of this disruptive digital revolution, okay? Provide them a vision for the future if you want to drive change, okay? And obviously we've got to be, very much business-centric and collaborative, okay? We're talking about, it's not analysis for its own sake. It's an ongoing collaborative way. We talked about the CIO evolution, talked about being a partner. We need to cooperate with the business. Try to solve business problems, get the business stakeholders involved in what we're doing. Participate. We've got to be business outcome driven, okay? As I said, it's not enough just to interpret what's happening. If we want to provoke, do we want to provoke or just want to ride out what's happening? So as the CIO had to evolve from being an IT-centric guy to a more business-centric person, well, I think the enterprise architect needs to be more business sensitive and more aware of the business context that we're going. So we need to go maybe a little bit beyond just frameworks, okay? This is the Dennis Martin restaurant. So we can't just be applying frameworks and transcribing what they're telling us, as I said before, okay? We need to embrace new concepts. We talked about that, the world's becoming data-driven. We're a data-driven company. So we decided to say, hey, why don't the architects become a bit more data-driven? One thing is funny though, we helped the company transform itself. This is bluntly what happened. Some people were working as enterprise architects that didn't even have that title because they were provoking change. They were creating vision and helping the enterprise interpret what was going on, okay? I think we need to go, frameworks are great. Okay, this is the wrong place to talk about frameworks maybe, sorry. But I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying maybe we've got to put in new skills. We've got to be provocative. We've got to maybe go beyond just the diagram. Someone in the previous speech said, this is a marketing representation. Next time I'll use one of the tools. I don't remember which one he said. Archimate. Well, maybe no one will understand it if you saw that, at least in the business area. Really nice though. Again, agility was the big thing we spoke about before, agility. Maybe we need to change the method. Maybe we need a more iterative, prototyping, agile EA model. If we want to keep up with the pace, if you're not, we're out. You're just going to be a failure. That's at least in our company. Change was that rapid that when the EA guy came along, we said, no, we haven't got time. We'll see you later. We're trying to survive. Okay? You go, but it's really important because if you want to merge in the future, if you want to do something, we're not going to know whether to dig a hole here or there because you won't know where the pipelines are. Well, again, we're trying to survive. I'm not saying that's not important, okay? Please understand that. Just let me say something else for those who are really curious, and someone said before me that if you want to look up on it, there's a new managerial type of concept to face VUCA, which was from the Roland Berger consultants. It's called the light footprint. They analyze 50 companies that are doing really well in this VUCA environment, Amazon, Google, Zara, Spanish company. Why are these guys thriving here? What are the characteristics? And they came up with 7 characteristics, okay? Which, you can look at. It's called the light footprint because that's basically Obama's, war strategy after, the previous Powell strategy, which is, go to the field and not make a mess. Use, technology, use different things and the light footprint, okay? Look into it. But the first point of the 7 key success factors was extreme agility. If you haven't seen it. I think it's something we should all look at in the EA world. At least we did in the CIO world. Some of those techniques are really handy. How can we, I haven't got the capacity to transform some of those skills in the EA, but I think they are applicable. At least the business thinks it's applicable. And we work in the business. So we need agility in the EA world. Otherwise we're left behind. The enterprise architect needs to be damn fast. That was enterprise architect, by the way. No. Another part here of EA, really quickly. I'm nearly finishing here with this one. Just got I was up to consideration number 5. This is sell. EA sell. We need to sell. We need sponsorship. You can't transform a company unless you've got the right sponsor. You need a business case. You need to involve top-level executives. How do you make EA something interesting for a business? Make it meaningful. Maybe we need to change the language. Someone said might even have to change the name. Maybe enterprise architecture is a name that people associate with diagramming and modeling. I've read an article about that. I'm not that radical, okay? But whatever is needed to sell, whatever is needed to obtain the right level of sponsorship, okay? These are just, again, 5 considerations which I think are important. But there's one more consideration, which I think at least, I think it's the most important consideration. Because I haven't got the answer, obviously. If I would, I'd be sitting over there most probably. There's something which is genuinely human that is required to succeed in the VUCA crazy world and this digital revolution. And I think it's audacity and courage. Something that goes beyond tools. And if you want to make a revolution, as someone said, doesn't occur when you adopt a new tool. It's when you adopt a new behavior. Okay, and you need to be brave because the consultant come up here and go, the next practice, not the best practice, but the next practice. And let me say that's a very solitary road. There's no one there. Until you get results, thank goodness we had results pretty soon, the bosses every day, we're spending a lot of money on this, but are you sure this is going to work? This doesn't seem to make any sense to me. No one else is doing this. These are the challenges, okay? So again, this is the revolution. And this is my last slide coming up now because I love this slide. This is, Jimi Hendrix here looking at the Sebastian Bach background there. How can we help the company so as not to become a one-man band? Here we go. It's not Bill Gates, by the way. It looks, when he was young, like Bill Gates. The solution is for the one-man band, I said the karaoke singer, okay? And the karaoke singer doesn't have to know the words exactly. He doesn't have to play all the instruments. He just needs to concentrate on singing. And that's what we have to do. We have to help the company do what it does well, which is basically concentrate on its business. And the EA has an important role to do there. That's where all this diagramming, modeling, and we need to show the path. Let me say another thing. I had in Berlin not long ago, there was a CIO meeting. A lot of top CIOs were there. The big companies, BMW, Carrefour. People were going, no, this is all dead, they were saying. EA's dead. CIOs are dead. The commoditization, people just ripping off, things off the cloud, and doesn't make sense. And I said that I don't believe in that at all. I think that anyone who's doing that is a short-term bonus, for time, for agility. They're running into a huge mess. You need architects to interpret correctly what's going on. Be it cloud, be it SOA, be it whatever. A lot of people go, no, SOA's here. EA's, all these concepts that I know you have gone through and you've already overcome. But I really believe the role of the architect is more important now than ever, because otherwise it's very complex for a company to be able to, give a solution or be able to confront the change, the rate of change the digital era is bringing along, and this crazy VUCA world is doing. Okay, thanks a lot for the time. Sorry about the delay.
So, yeah, thank you for that. It's very insightful and a lot of fun with some of those videos. So, to ask the questions, let me introduce Jim Hightower, who's the Open Group VP for Business Development and Security. Jim.
Thanks, Alan. So we have a couple of questions. First one, what and how many skills and people did you have to make the transition, and what type of skills did those folks have?
Well, again, we're not a very big company, okay? So the good thing is that you can bring in skills from outside the company, right? Especially new skills. So overall, for that transformation, the full transformation, we're just talking about I call it the leading edge of the transformation. We brought in, as I said, people with data skills, okay, mathematicians, statistics type people, etc. And we created an ecosystem of different IT providers to help us architect what we thought would be the right path to take in technology to respond in the way we wanted to respond to business, okay? My team in the IT department, we have 4 people who are basically in charge of running the architect show, okay? That part of the business. In our company, we've got maybe 6 people who are mathematicians, okay? Again, people are just data-driven, analytical, provoking. They're provoking us and feeding us with information as to how we can maybe orient or, put vision on the company, okay? And again, bringing a lot of help from outside, important for us anyway. We're not a huge company, as I said before, so we had a lot of partners who are more than willing to experiment with us and bring in some of that know-how.
Okay. And so second question, I found myself listening to your presentation and the journey that you took around shrinking the time it took to make credit decisions, credit risk decisions, and coming from the security world thinking we really need that sort of thinking and that sort of process reengineering, if you will, around cybersecurity risk analysis. So I wonder if you had any thoughts along your journey or, in your experience as CIO around applying some of those lessons learned to analyzing cybersecurity risk and what that might look like.
Okay, so I mean, with maybe cybersecurity risk, there's a lot of unknown unknowns, okay, especially with the new technology. In our case, data was the big thing, and data and simulation. We have more than 15 years track history, able to reproduce and run simulation tests on what was happening, and to gain confidence that what we're doing was working, and then the A/B type testing, okay, which is open up specific areas of our business to what we were doing, to experiment and to limit the risk, okay, what they call the B modeling type of thing, with a little niche, limited risk. See the results on that. This is the testing, iterative prototyping, testing, and running on as quick as possible, putting on real in the real environment, not just in the lab. Okay, so again, I think data is for us the key for complexity, as I said before, for being able to see what's going to happen when I throw this new risk model on our system, what sort of results am I going to gain, and then opening up as fast as possible to real testing, again, in a limited scope, so that we can see the results of that, okay? Again, I think security data is huge at the moment, so, and being able to exploit that and convert that into insight, it help a lot to mitigate and gain confidence.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.